Do you want to make a difference in the world? Well, then probably MIT Sloan is the place for you. It's the place of ideas. It's the place of innovation, intellectual discovery, hands-on learning. They're inventing the future. And it's always a great pleasure with the Centre Court MBA Festival to invite Jake Cohen. Jake is the Senior Associate Dean and responsible for all of the undergraduate and master's programs at MIT Sloan, including, of course, the MBA. Jake, great to see you at the end of graduation. I know you were teaching earlier this morning. It must be a great moment to see all of the students, about to set off on new adventures.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Matt. It's really nice to see all the students graduate, the parents so excited to see their sons and daughters off to the world of business. And it's a real pleasure. But as we were saying, it's amazing how it doesn't stop here at MIT. We graduated them on Friday, and on Monday we welcomed the LGO class. We have the Masters of Finance coming, and it never stops.
Well, of course, you have your own prestigious career in accounting finance. You were previously at INSEAD and many years now at Sloan. What do you most enjoy in the leadership role that you have at MIT Sloan?
I think MIT is an amazing place. I enjoy working with our faculty, the staff, and making sure that the students who come to MIT get the full experience. And the full experience is not necessarily just in one program, but also getting to know classmates and schoolmates and institute mates from both MIT and Sloan. And that's what makes MIT really quite unique. It's a school where we have a portfolio of programs. And for us to be able to attract students that benefit from being in the same community with others is really quite rewarding for me to see, and for my teams and I to manage that complexity, which is really positive NPV for all.
Right. As you know, sometimes these videos at Centre Court, they're viewed by like 220,000 people, and there will not be a single individual among them that hasn't heard of MIT. But how do you like to describe the school, either to your nephew or niece, or perhaps a candidate to one of the programs?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned it earlier. MIT is really an incredible place where ideas are made to matter. And these ideas come from the School of Engineering, the School of Science. They're here, of course, at the School of Management. And to be able to help change the world by bringing these ideas forward is what MIT does. So some of the innovations in the MIT laboratories end up being the innovations in the marketplace, which is quite nice to see. And today, in a world where everyone's talking about generative AI, people are talking about ESG, they're talking about dealing with climate issues, the impact of the world once we have quantum computing. What's amazing is all these are topics we talk about at MIT and really are at the forefront of these inventions and innovations. So it's a remarkable place, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be here.
Right. I mean, there are top business schools, and then there are top business schools, places like Sloan. Is that sort of interaction, across different departments and disciplines, is that one of the key strengths, do you think, of the Sloan MBA?
Absolutely. So again, what we tell the students who come to MIT, and I said that yesterday when I welcomed the LGO students, that it's important for them not just to be with their cohort, or not just to be with the students from Sloan, but actually really go out and reach out and experience the richness of MIT. MIT is very open. People from the Sloan School can interact quite easily with other students who are studying in engineering and architecture and science, as well as the humanities, arts, and social sciences school. So really, it's important to not just be with your own program and cohort, but rather reach out and benefit from the richness of this institute, and also the richness of Kendall Square. Kendall Square has changed dramatically over the past decade that I've been here, and all the biotechs, the technology companies have moved in, and it's really quite amazing to even just go out to a restaurant and engage with people there who are doing scientific work that's really going to change the world and change the future. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Perhaps just a special word for Sloan Fellows, because there are 25, 26-year-olds looking at the full-time MBA program. But then, we didn't all make that choice. We're perhaps now 8, 10 years on at more senior levels. So there are only 2 or 3 programs like Sloan Fellows in the world. Just briefly describe it to us.
Yeah, so the Sloan Fellow MBA program, you're right. It's a program that doesn't exist in too many places. There's a program at Stanford. There's a program also in London Business School. But the Sloan Fellow program is for senior executives who've done well in their careers and want to take a pause, reflect on what they've learned, reposition maybe for the future. So especially with certain technologies moving very fast, it's good for them to come to MIT, kind of plug in, learn what are the things that are going to change the future that they're operating in, and after a year, resume their careers. And often they resume in a much faster pace and get promoted. But it's really for senior executives. The average age of the Sloan Fellow MBA students is 38. So again, senior folks who've done well in their careers, but at this point are viewing it as an opportunity to reflect and reposition.
Right. And because you also offer an executive MBA, but I mean, Sloan, it is that 1 year immersion to really be able to take stock and think about the transition that you've described.
Yes, so the Sloan Fellow MBA is for senior executives, the EMBA as well for senior executives, but the EMBAs continue to work while they're studying, versus the Sloan Fellows come from around the world and are immersed in this community for an entire year.
Right. So, whether you're looking at the challenges and the opportunities of AI and machine learning, life sciences, there's also an incredible emphasis on personal development and leadership. Is that something that starts on day one and it's just a step-by-step journey through the MBA or the Sloan Fellows program?
Absolutely. It starts on day one. It's an orientation. We have a fabulous MIT Leadership Center that engages with the students really from their early days here at MIT. There are many, many courses in leadership, and it's important for us. We understand that especially for students like the Sloan Fellow MBA, the roles that they're going to take, especially as they graduate from here, are leadership roles. And it's not so much the need to have the technical skills. They have the technical skills. They gain those technical skills early on in their careers. But at this point, they are taking C-suite roles. They are moving up into senior leadership, and they need to understand other areas. And so leadership is very much embedded in the program. Yesterday, we welcomed, as I mentioned, the leaders for global operations. Leadership is in the name. The faculty member who welcomed them, who's a co-director of the program, Retzef Levy, actually made the point that this is a leadership program that obviously focuses on operations, on management issues, but we want to be mindful that the first letter, the first word in the program's name is leadership.
Right. Now, under your watch, the school has committed to some very exciting partnerships. For example, with the Central Bank of Malaysia, there's now the Asia School of Business for the last 6-7 years. Can you explain how the MBA students at ASB then benefit from the Sloan faculty, both in Kuala Lumpur, but also the time that they get to spend at Sloan?
Yes, absolutely. So MIT Sloan believes in global partnerships. We have a big office that oversees it. We have partnerships in China, partnerships in Portugal and Italy, and also, as you mentioned, a big partnership now in Malaysia. In 2015, the Bank Negara Malaysia, the Central Bank of Malaysia, in partnership with MIT Sloan, established the Asia School of Business, which allows students in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur to learn from MIT faculty who travel to KL, as well as from the resident faculty who are incredible and come from all over the world, from top schools, and live and work there full time. So the students in KL benefit from MIT faculty who travel to KL in addition to coming to Cambridge. So the ASB MBA students come to Cambridge in May and get to experience this ecosystem, which we feel is very special, and take additional courses in entrepreneurship and finance and marketing here on campus at MIT. So that's a partnership we have with the bank in Malaysia, but as I mentioned, we have these partnerships also in China and other places.
I mean, I look at the price point and I think I get the Sloan faculty, I get the time, at MIT Sloan, as well as, understanding perhaps the European market or the Chinese market, in this case, the Malaysian market. And it's also a case, I think, that for the MSMS program that Sloan offers, you have these privileged partnerships with ASB, with Tsinghua and others. So that would be a great way to earn, what, 2 degrees in 2 years? You spend the first year at a school like ASB, and then you come and do the second year at Sloan?
Yes, absolutely. So we have, through the Global Partnerships Office, strong relationships, and that allows certain students who study at partner schools like ASB, like Tsinghua, and others to earn 2 degrees, if they so choose, in 2 years by doing 1 year in China or in Malaysia, and then do a second year at MIT in Cambridge and earn the MSMS degree. The MSMS is really a degree that's open to students who come from partner schools. So partner schools are ones like Imperial. We have partnership with ASB and others, and it allows them to study both in ASEAN and understand the richness of the environment in Asia, which of course is very important, and also understand what's happening in North America. So to some extent, it's really the best of both East and West, and with faculty traveling to see the students there, students traveling to Cambridge to learn here. And now the Institute in Malaysia is headed by a very senior MIT professor who was for the longest time the vice president of MIT responsible for open learning. And Sanjay Sarma, a mechanical engineering superstar, is now the president and dean of ASB. So the partnership is not just with faculty traveling and students traveling, but also with senior leadership from MIT directly involved with ASB.
Yeah, having met Sanjay, I would want to sit in his classroom in an instant. Now, whether you graduate on the East Coast in the dynamic Kendall Square, it's sort of biotech environment that you're describing, or in Southeast Asia, what would you say are perhaps 2 or 3 of the key leadership skills that the graduating students are really going to need to be successful in business?
Right. So I would say first, communication is very important. In fact, that's why at MIT Sloan, communication is part of the core. We take a very our belief is that it's a very important skill for people to know and to be able to practice. So communications is one of them. Problem solving. The world is filled with problems. We want our students to be problem solvers, and even our leadership takes a view that we are problem-focused leadership. So identify the problem and bring knowledge to bear to address some of these issues. In fact, that's to a large extent also MIT's mission. I would also, of course, say the collaboration, teamwork. Often you can't do things on your own. You have to make sure to work in a team and make sure that the synergy value of the team is positive. So how do you make 1 + 1 + 1 = 5 versus 3? And a team can do that, but individuals often can't. And maybe I would add also flexibility and adaptability. In my graduation speeches, I often talk about Charles Darwin. I talk about his famous quote that it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, rather the one most responsive to change. And you need to be able to adapt to a changing world. The world is changing faster than ever, with big issues and big problems like climate change, issues like the ethical dilemmas around generative AI, and many others. So you need leaders who can really think through these issues with their teams, be able to communicate well, and to help solve these big problems. And that's really what we look for at MIT, and I know that's also what we look for at ASB.
Right. Well, I know that Sloan graduates then step into exciting new career opportunities, but also the sort of things that you're describing. Those are going to serve them well and will serve society well 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. When they arrive on the first day, as you say, there's nearly always a new group that's coming in. What advice do you give to the incoming class that are thinking, look at everything that I can do, not just Sloan, but there's MIT and it's such a vibrant, cultural, smart city on their doorstep. How do you advise them to prioritize or think about getting the most out of the experience?
Yeah, so again, time flies by. So my comments to the incoming class yesterday was the 2 years are going to fly by, especially given all the opportunities you will have. A former president of MIT once said that studying at MIT is like drinking from a fire hose. There's just so much to do, so many opportunities for you to take advantage of. But the key is to do it and to take advantage of them. So get out and about, meet people, build your networks, engage with folks, join clubs, make sure to learn about all these technologies that are really quite important and revolutionary, and also take advantage of what makes MIT unique. And I think what makes MIT unique is the mens et manos, the mind and hand, the view that theory and practice have to be fused and come together. And the way we do that is with the action learning offerings that we have. So I often encourage students to take courses that are action learning courses. They're not required, they're electives, but most students do it. And it's important for them to see how the skills we teach in the classroom tie to the practice of it in the real world, because it's really that fusion of knowledge and practical purpose that is quite important. So that's unique to MIT. In 1861, when William Barton Rogers founded MIT, it was founded with a mission and view that you need to have a new education, and that new education is one where you bring knowledge and practice together. And that's really quite unique. So what I tell the students is to take advantage of that.
Right. Now, I know that 162 years later, how committed you are personally to enabling everyone to drink from that fire hose. And in terms of the diversity of the school, of the programs, why is that so important to you? And what are some of the initiatives at Sloan that are then broadening the pipeline of applicants from perhaps underrepresented groups?
Yes, absolutely. So we believe in diversity because it's quite important for students to understand the markets they operate in, the customers they have, and we want to make sure that we have a diverse representation of ideas. Ideas made to matter is true, but you need to have these ideas and you can't necessarily have groupthink. So we want to make sure to bring students into the community, faculty into the community, speakers into the community that can share diverse perspectives. And we have a big focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion to make sure that underrepresented minorities find a welcoming home at MIT Sloan. And again, the reason we do that is because we believe it's very important for leaders to understand the market, to understand the world, to understand the big issues that we're facing, and to help solve these problems. We often talk about MIT students and the mission of MIT Sloan is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world. And I feel strongly that the way to understand the issues is to have a diverse community that can share perspectives and learn from one another.
We mentioned earlier Sanjay Sarma, who, of course, was head of open learning and an incredible mind when it comes to the digital platforms learning. Sloan is so far ahead. How do you then see both the full-time MBA, the Sloan Fellows MBA, existing alongside all of that online offering with the very valuable face-to-face experience that it brings?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. I know many people are trying to think through what that means going forward, but I would build on what you said at the end. I think the interactions, the face-to-face, the in-person is very important. We see that. During COVID, we obviously had to adapt and we had to be flexible and we had to do it remotely and online. So to some extent, we got to see what that's like. And truthfully, we strongly believe that in-person is very important. So what's the future look like? I think having the in-person experience is critical. I wouldn't necessarily want to move away from it. I think having people come together, sit together, understand perspectives, and that's also where diversity is. You need to experience it. You need to be able to share in person, get out, learn from each other together, not necessarily on Zoom,
Mm.
but to actually be together is good for the learning, it's good for the networking, and it's good for the school as a whole. But as we think about where things are going with technology and online learning, and Sanjay's views are also ones that are quite important around the benefits of online technology. And I fully agree with that, but it should come together with in-person experiences as well. It shouldn't substitute the in-person. It can complement it quite well, and that's what we're thinking about.
Perhaps just a final word for viewers from all over the world, particularly maybe in North America. There's been a strong job market for many years. People have perhaps postponed their business school plans. But when we think about the enduring value of the MBA, not just with that first position out of school, but 5 years, 10 years, and then experience itself, 2 years of immersion with such a smart bunch of people. What is your advice to anyone that's thinking about an MBA?
Yes, I think an MBA is a great value proposition for individuals because of what you said. It's not just the experience during the program, but also after the program. In fact, this past weekend we had our alumni reunion. And what's amazing to me is it's not that they come and study for 2 years and that's it. Rather, they engage with the school for many years to come. They join our executive boards, they hire our students, they come and listen to faculty give lectures around the world. They're very generous often and are engaged alumni. So I feel like the value proposition of an MBA should be not just for the education, but rather for the relationship that the student builds with that school. And what I would advise is for people to think about what's the right school for them.
Mm.
Where would they like to study, but where would they like to fit for much more than just a year or two? Where would they want to build this connection to an institution? And it was really a pleasure this weekend to meet with some of the alumni who graduated 5 years ago and to see them back on campus. And it's almost like they never left. We connected, we went out and got some coffee and talked about what they're doing and how the school can still help them now. So an MBA is an important investment. People have to think about the return on investment, but they also have to think about how that school can be helpful to them, not just in the 2 years or the 1 year that they're studying, but rather going forward into the future as they progress in their careers. And at MIT, I find that the people we bring are people who join us really for life. And it sounds, somewhat grandiose, but I find it to be true. I love the fact that when we graduate students, they tell us we'll see you at the alumni reunions, and they never want to leave, which is nice.
Well, having you at Centre Court is my own personal reunion, and it's always a pleasure to welcome you back. I love the fact that both, the passion of the 2 year experience and everything that brings, but to be able to give that sort of longer focus, and just you've got that MIT Sloan.edu email address for life, and everyone wants to use it. So it was great to have you at Centre Court, Jake. It's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you very, very much indeed.